גזוטרה שהיא למעלה מן המים. A balcony that is above the water. Imagine you have a nice house, waterside property above the Kinneret, like the Romans built, you know?
Your balcony above the Kinneret.
And you have the balcony above the Kinneret, and now you can jump into the Kinneret. So you,
ski from there.
or you can ski. So you want to take water out of the Kinneret into your house now. That's the idea.
Or a pipe down.
Or throw a bucket. That's what you used to do. Throw a bucket and take it up. That's our case.
Because we learned in a house with a porch underneath, it's private.
That's right. But over here, but the water is private on it, but it's mixing up with the other water. The same problem as the well.
The water to the other side.
That's right. So what are we going to, how are we going to alleviate this problem? גזוטרה שהיא למעלה מן המים. A balcony that is above border. Either it can be above any border. It can be above the river, above any water. We don't care what. כגון בית העומד סמוך לנהר. Like a house that stands next to a river. וגזוטרה בולטת מן הקומה העליונה שלא על גבי המים. And there's a balcony goes from the upper floor on top of the water. ודרך החור שברצפת הגזוטרה. And there's a hole inside the balcony, in the middle of the balcony. שואבים בני העלייה מים מן הנהר. They have almost indoor plumbing at that time. They can get water right away. Just a bucket down and boom up. It's like they have a well in their house. אין ממלאים ממנה בשבת. You're not allowed to draw water from it on Shabbat. Again, because you didn't show that it's your private water yet. You have to show that it's your private water. אין בני העלייה, those guys who are living in the balcony, מותרים לשאוב מים בשבת דרך אותו חור. They're not allowed to take water on Shabbat through that hole. לפי שהנהר הוא כרמלית. Again, same problem. The נהר is another domain. והגזוטרה רשות היחיד. And the balcony is a private domain. והרי אסור להכניס מכרמלית לרשות היחיד. And you're not allowed to take from a Carmelite to the private domain. But again, the rabbis made it easy for these guys. How? אלא אם כן עשו לה, but at least you have to show that the water underneath it is like you're doing something, showing that the water underneath is your water. אלא אם כן עשו לה לגזוטרה מסביב לחור שבה, they made surrounding the hole in it מחיצה גבוהה 10 טפחים. You made a מחיצה on top 10 טפחים. In other words, the balcony is not allowed to be straight like this, and there's a hole in it. You want to show that the water underneath is yours, build the mechitza above the hole, 10 tfachim, and that will show that it's 10 tfachim now. You separated it, the water, like you separated it from the water. And it's on top.
Can't you do the kuzustra itself, 10 tfachim around the kuzustra, and then the hole is anyways.
Yeah, like you have a skirt on the balcony.
This is the balcony, and this is the hole, and you do here around.
I don't think you can. I'll tell you why. Because the idea of it is to show that it's for water, that it's you making the water underneath.
You have to do it around the hole.
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea is to show that it's not just a fence or a skirt or something for beauty. It has to be shown that it's specifically for the hole. I think.
To go in the mikveh on Shabbos, does it have to be?
No, the whole mikveh is in a private domain, and it's not a river; it's a hole.
No, let's say it's a big lake here, or it's a place where you can go in the mikveh.
Or you'll have a water carrying water. If you're wet, you'll have a problem going from the river to the private domain. Absolutely. You have that problem.
You could do sort of like Ray said, this is my mikveh, right? They put this is my mikveh house down there.
We don't know. That's going to be a little bit more problematic. You have to make the hole has to be much bigger. The skirt around the water has to be much. I think in your case, you will actually have to build a boundary within the river itself. If you want to use that.
His idea was to take a rope, go down.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you can do that also, that's right. אלא אם כן עשו לה לגזוטרה מסביב לחור שבה, you have to put above the hole in it, מחיצה גבוהה 10 טפחים. A מחיצה which is the height of 10 טפחים. שבחגון זה אנו אומרים, in such a case we say, שהמים ששואבים בתוך המחיצות הם, that the water that you're taking out is within the boundary, והרי הם כאילו ברשות אחי, as it is if they are in the private domain. בין מלמעלה, that מחיצה can be above the balcony, going 10 טפחים up, or it can be down from the balcony, in the nest, בין מלמטה, whether it is downstairs, למטה מן הגזוטרה, below the גזוטרה, כלומר מתחת לרצפת הגזוטרה, from below the hall. מחיצה התלויה ויורדת למטה לצד הנהר, you can see like a box underneath. והרמב"ם מפרש, this is according to Rashi. The Rambam explains, בין מלמעלה, whether it is above, מעל גבי המים, says no, whether it is above the water, that's what it means, היינו תחת הגזוטרה מסביב לחור, which is the lower, it's above the water, מחיצה המשתלשלת כנגד המים, the מחיצה is against the water, שבכל גון זה רואים את המחיצה כאילו נמשך ויורד עד למים, it looks like it goes all the way down to the water, בין מלמטה, על המים כנגד החור שבגזוטרה, שחרגון זה רואים את המחיצה כאילו נמשכה ויורד לחור הגזוטרה. In other words, the Rambam says, the למעלה למטה, it's ממש above the water. That's right. We learned above the balcony or below the balcony. The Rambam learns below the balcony or above the water. That's the two ways. Okay. וכן שתי גזוטרות זו למעלה מזו. Oh, now we have a different problem. We have two balconies. People living on the roof. One person lives on the roof and another person lives on the first floor. Two different families. And the balcony is on top of each other's. And there's a hole going through one balcony, above the other balcony, into the water. וכן שני גזוטראות זו למעלה מזו. Two balconies, one on top of the other. שהם למעלה מן המים. Both of them are above the border. והחור שבגזוטרה העליונה מכוון כנגד החור שבגזוטרה התחתונה. And the hole of the upper one is דוך and דוך. In other words, the upper courtyard has rights of passage, just like we learned before, through the lower courtyard. We are allowed to go to the river, that's for the water. They have the right of passage. You know, they cannot terminate the right of passage to the water. אין ממלאים מים בשבת. It says, none of them are allowed to draw water on Shabbat, אלא אם כן עשו מחיצה לכל אחת ואחת. But they both need to make a מחיצה, each and every one of them. עשו לעליונה, let's say just the top one did. See, in the courtyard, once the top one did, right, have the right of way, they have the right of way to take water, now they're allowed to go through the bottom one, right? So they should be allowed to draw even though the bottom one didn't do, according to our logic. That's the way we learned from before. עשו לעליונה, they made to the upper balcony, אם עשו מחיצה על הגזוטרה העליונה, כלומר שגם בני הגזוטרה התחתונה השתתפו בעשיית מחיצה זו של העליונה. It says, how is it possible? So it says, let's say they put it, both of them made the mechitza. Let's say it's in between. Okay, so the upper one paid for half the mechitza that the lower one built above the hall. On the first balcony. השתתפו בעשיית מחיצה זו שלה ולא עשו לתחתונה, but then they didn't make for the lower one. Or maybe it's on the bottom of them, on the bottom of the upper one. Let's make it easier. ולא עשו לתחתונה, and they didn't make for the lower one, אבל לא עשו מחיצה בגזוטרה התחתונה, but they didn't make מחיצה in the lower one. שתיהם, שתי הגזוטראות אסורות. Both of them are not allowed to use. So I understand if the upper one, the mechitza is for the upper one, why the lower one is not allowed to use. But the upper one should be allowed to use because they have the right of way for the water. Says you can't stop me from my right of way to the water. The fact that we didn't make an eruv, how does that? זהו. אסורות בישיבת המשבת. Why? שהואיל ובני התחתונה שותפים במחיצת העליונה, because the lower one are partners. If they were not partners, it's possible that the upper ones are allowed to. See, usually, let's talk practically. Usually it's expensive to make balconies and mechitzas. And if it's a shared well, you would make one for both. It says, it's like a fence. You pay half the fence, I pay half the fence. Over here, we need to draw water. So you make half the mechitza, and I half the mechitza. They both made half the mechitza. If it was only the upper ones, then they will be able to take it. But now when the lower ones shared in the upper ones, they showed that it's half theirs. And if there's no eruv between us, that's going to become problematic. So in the other cases that...
If they have eruv, they can take them?
Yes, if they have eruv, then...
Just by mechitza down there, and both of them can draw water.
I'm not sure about what I'm saying. But let's finish and then figure it out. If the eruv will help. Maybe even the eruv will not help in such a case, I'm thinking.
My logic says
I think maybe even with eruv it won't help. We'll see soon. שהואילו בני התחתונה שותפים במחיצת העליונה, since the lower one are partners with the mechitza of the upper one, הרי הם אוסרים על בני העליונה, they are forbidden on the upper floor. וכל שכן הם עשו מחיצה לתחתונה ולא עשו לעליונה. How much more so if they made the מחיצה to the bottom balcony but not to the upper one. אפילו אין לעליונה שותפות במחיצה של התחתונה, 12 אסורות. Even if the upper one doesn't have permission, did not participate in the building of the lower one. Both of them are prohibited. העליונה לפי שאין לה מחיצה, the upper one because it doesn't have a מחיצה, והתחתונה והואיל ויש לעליונה דריסת רגל עליה. And the upper one, like we say, the lower one has the right to it, and they did not join it, that's it. שאף היא שואבת מים דרך חור של התחתונה, because she has the right to use that property. So once she has the right, and you didn't make an eruv, it's no good. לפיכך היא אוסרת עליה, עד שיערבו. Once the eruv is done, they're allowed to. שתי הגזוטראות זו עם זו. Once the eruv did, they're both allowed to do whatever, even if it's only the upper one or in the lower one. They're both allowed. ברם, אם כל אחת עשתה מחיצה, אפילו לא ערבו, what happened if each one of them made a מחיצה and there's no עירוב? Still, שניהם מותרות לשאוב מים בשבת. Don't worry, if each one has a מחיצה, they're both allowed to draw water בשבת, even though you go through the other guy's property. You have the right of way to go through his property.
You have it anyway.
שגילה דעתו שאין ביניהם כל שותפות. Because if both have a מחיצה, they showed that we're not partners. וכל אחת היא רשות לעצמה. Each one is its own private domain. והרי יש לכל אחת מחיצה מטרת. And each one has its own boundary. במה דברים אמורים? Don't jump to conclusion too quickly. All this is in what type of case? כששתי הגזוטראות מופלגות זו מזו. The two balconies has to be in a certain distance from each other. ויש ביניהם 10 טפחים או יותר. They have to have at least 10 טפחים or more. אבל אם אין ביניהם 10 טפחים, but if there's no between them 10 טפחים, אפילו עשתה כל אחת מחיצה, even if each one of them made a מחיצה, a boundary, לעולם אוסרות זו על זו עד שיערבו. They always prohibit one on the other one until they make an eruv, because they're in the same, they have the same, they're sharing the same property over here. There's a שיתוף. לפי ששתיהם נחשבות כגזוטרה אחת. Because we consider them both, even though this is for the upper floor. In other words, the upper floor made it a little bit lower, and the lower floor made the balcony a little bit higher. And now they're very close to each other. It says you're almost sharing the same space. So if it's within 10 tfachim, we consider it sharing the same space. Because of that sharing, you're in trouble. You need to make an eruv. Up to here.
So if it's they don't have the eruv, they're not partners. No. So if they're partners and they have an eruv between the two of them,
Then they can do whatever they want. Both of them are allowed to.
no, but the bottom guy still has to have the thing.
One of them has to have, yeah. Oh, the bottom one has to have. The upper one doesn't help. Yeah, if the upper one has and the lower one has, the bottom one is not allowed to. But if the bottom one has the mechitza, the upper one doesn't, and they have an eruv between them, then it's okay, even for the upper one to draw water. But not the other way around.
If they don't have an eruv,
Then they both need.
and it makes an a partition.
Which one?
Top.
If they're both prohibited, if they don't have an eruv.
But what if they both have a partition now?
If they both have, they're both permitted, even without an eruv.